Welcome in, everyone. How are we doing today? I'm going to do a quick switch here, and we're going to meet our guest right away. We got Dr. Will Moreland in the building. Dr. Will, how are we doing today?
Man, I'm doing blessed and fantastic, man. Super excited to be here with you and your community, man.
Okay. So a couple announcements here. First of all, Mandy is under the weather, but she's in the chat. No voice, so we got her on voice rest. So she's going to be joining us virtually in the chat there. We'll give Dr. Will his round of applause really quickly here. Let me do that again. Okay. Yes. So made a few changes. We're up and running. Usually, either Mandy and I will give an introduction, but I'm going to ask you some questions that will allow you to introduce yourself to us. So my first question is, if there is one word you would use to describe Dr. Will, what word is that and why?
Oh, that's a good question, man. One word that I would use to describe me that I just love about myself is focus. I just love the word focus. If I think about what has gotten me to where I am right now, it's just being focused, man.
And then share with us, like, what's your current focus? What is the big idea you're currently focusing on?
Oh, I love that. So I'm currently focused on, we have a couple of initiatives going on inside the company, but I'm currently focused on culture. I do a lot of work in corporate America and colleges and universities, and I want to make the workplace a better place for everybody. So that really has my attention right now. I've dedicated the next decade to improving workplace environment.
Okay. So that's my first question. Then if you were to give like your elevator pitch, 30 seconds about Dr. Will, which you can't find on Dr. Will's website, on his LinkedIn profile, on his Instagram, on his Facebook. Give us 30 seconds, underneath the surface.
Underneath the surface. So really a chill, laid back. This will surprise a lot of people. They think because I'm on the stage all the time that I'm an extrovert, but I'm really an introvert. If you gave me my preference, I could just sit in my office. I can sit in my house and just chill and relax. Some people know this about me, but not a lot of people. I'm a huge sneaker fanatic. I love sneakers. It's been a part of my life, a part of my culture for forever. I'm a huge jazz fan. I love listening to just relaxing, listening to jazz. And then something else people may not know or not out there. What would that be? People won't know this. I'm a undercover comedian. I love comedians. I love watching them and studying them. I love to laugh each and every day. But I like to consider myself pretty hilarious as well.
Okay, we'll test that out. We'll see. So you mentioned jazz. If you're gonna play 3 jazz artists in a row that you love, who are the 3 jazz artists you're gonna pick to play?
Oh, Coltrane, Miles Davis, and I would say uh, my third one would be probably Sanborn.
Okay, David Sanborn.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. All right, all right. We look at your career, very distinguished career, written over 20 books, spoken on thousands, thousands of stages. What is it, and when was the first time you knew that you wanted to be a speaker?
Yeah, so this is a funny story because I call myself literally the accidental speaker. I call myself the accidental speaker. Now, I grew up, not grew up, but early 20s, I was listening to personal development, people like Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Lisa Nichols. And I didn't know that there was this profession called speaking, that like you could wake up and say, I want to be a professional speaker. I just honestly thought like Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, they got hit with the magic wand and they got to go and speak. I didn't know it was this whole industry out there, even though people later on in my career, they would ask me to come and speak and they would say, hey, we're having this program. Can you come and tell us your story? You know, being an at-risk kid, how did you change your life around? Things like that, motivational talk. But I still didn't know that you could be a professional speaker. So long story short, I was living in Europe for about 15 years. I moved my company to Phoenix, Arizona in 2010. And about 2011, things weren't going how I wanted them to go. You know how you have your plan on your PowerPoint and your spread sheets, but life wasn't matching with my PowerPoint, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm at lunch one day with a buddy of mine, and I'm kind of complaining to him and saying, man, things are not going how I thought they were going to go. Savings account is dwindling. Wife is looking at me, I need to do something. And he says, man, Will, I know that you can speak. I know that you have that background. You should be a speaker. Now, up until this time, Amani, I went to speak. People would give me like a gift card. They would give me like $20 for gas, give me a plate of food and say, thank you. That was amazing. So when he told me this, I looked at him and I'm like, man, I just poured out my heart, told you I'm about to be, in the doghouse. And you talked about I should go speak for a gift card. And I'll never forget, Amani, he pulls out this check. And he pulls out this check for $3,500. And he says, man, I just got this for speaking for 1 hour. So you can imagine now he has my attention. I said, what? Somebody paid you to speak for 1 hour for $3,500? He says, yes. And he says, next week, there's a convention down in Los Angeles, speakers convention. You should go. Now, remember, I don't know anything about the speaking industry. I don't know this is a thing. I said, what? He says, yeah, it's run by this guy by the name of James Melanchek. You should go. So I said, man, I don't know if I should be traveling, man. My wife's going to look at me crazy, but all right, I'm going to go. I go down there and now I walk into this room. It's like 2,000 people that are speakers. So now fear sets in because I'm like, oh my God, I thought I had an opportunity. It's like everybody in the world is a speaker. And everybody I went up to, Amani, what's your topic? Oh, leadership. What's your top? Leadership. What's your top? I'm like, that's what I was going to talk about. But I was there for 3 days. And at the end of it, I was convinced that I could really do this. And that's when 13 years ago, man, I said, I'm going to be a professional speaker and haven't turned back.
Haven't turned back. Now, just so everyone knows in the audience, along the way, Dr. Will makes consistent stops at Denny's. Why do you have a love for Denny's restaurant?
Oh, man, you are talking my language. I appreciate this, man. Very few people ask me that question about Denny's, man. So I travel a whole lot. So I can come into a city early in the morning or late at night. And guess what? I'm usually hungry, but most of the restaurants are closed. And so about a decade ago, I realized that the only place that would be convenient enough and safe enough and a lot of these places to go and eat was Denny's. And I'm a creature of habit. And so with Denny's, I always know what I'm going to get. I always know what to expect. The customer service is always good when I go. And so I just fell in love. It literally, actually, people laugh at me all the time when I say Denny's is my favorite restaurant. I'm not just saying that. It really is my favorite restaurant. A little plug for Denny's. If you haven't been in a while, go. You'll be surprised. I don't know if you like the last speakers convention or 2 speaker conventions ago. I was with a group of speakers and they were like, "Oh, come on, let's go eat." And I convinced them all, "Hey, let's go try out Denny's." And they were like, "Denny's? No, I'm not going to eat at Denny's." But thumbs up, they gave it all approval. And so, yeah, Denny's has been my ride or die, man, for about a decade or so.
I love it. We got to get you some sponsorship with Denny's. I mean, come on now. They
Man,
got to get on board.
I'm waiting, man. I'm waiting for, come on, Denny's, let's do it. I got an amazing program that you can sponsor.
Okay, let's go. Appreciate you sharing that story. I had to ask that. Now, Mandy's in the chat, so we're going to get down to some serious questions. Mandy asked tremendous questions, so be ready.
All right,
so
let's go.
A 2-part question here. When you coach leaders about decision-making, first, how can salespeople do better with guiding people to make decisions? That's the first point.
Yeah. So when you're talking with people and you're selling any type of product, you want them to feel good about buying the product. So what it has to happen is it has to be their decision. So you want to use language that's going to lead them there. So for instance, usually when we're talking to people about selling something, we ask them, is there a question that you have? Is there a question that you have? But what we don't realize is when you say that, what you're asking them is to find the holes in your presentation. If you've done a great presentation, they shouldn't have any questions.
Yes, yes.
You see the difference? It's a slight difference. But when you ask them, do you have any questions? It's like you left a hole in your presentation and it gives them the route to start poking holes. So when you're talking to someone, you want to ask them things like, so what would it take for you to get this product? Or what else has to happen? Do you need to talk to a spouse? Do you need to think about it? What has to happen for it? So you want it to be their decision. When people buy from their position, they don't feel as though they were sold. They don't feel as though that they were pressured into buying your product. So I always tell salespeople and I always tell leaders, you want to get the consumer, the client, to make it their purchase.
Got it. Okay, and the second part of that is for leaders, what is an area that needs improvement for better decision-making for leaders?
Yeah, perfect question. You got to listen better. You got to listen better. And when I say listen better, that means listen to your team and listen to your customers. Listen to your team, listen to your customers. Your team is going to tell you where the problems are, where the hiccups are, where the obstacles are. And your client and customer is going to specifically tell you what they want and what they need. So many times as entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, we want to go create stuff and then once again, convince people that they need it or want it. No, go ask people, what do you want? What do you need? What's going on? And just listen. You know, there's a great story about Sam Walmart. He would go into his boardroom and he would listen to everybody tell him what he should do. And then famously, he would go out in overalls and go to the local diner and just walk downtown and ask the customer, ask the client what they want. And he would always go back to his boardroom and say, we're scrapping what you just talked about. The customer just told me what they wanted. They wanted more efficiency. They wanted lower prices. They wanted more options. And so when you look at a Walmart right now, where most stores have limited options, Sam Walmart knew his client wanted a lot of options. When you look at most companies, do they want more salespeople or do they just want lower prices? And so Sam said, okay, I can give you lower prices, but we're not going to have that many people asking you, how can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you? The people said, I don't need no help. I don't want no help. Just let me go and shop. And so if you look at the Walmart model, That's because Sam Walmart listened to the client and the customers.
Well said. Well said. I want to kind of also talk about mindset for a moment. I've been continuously impressed because I've known you now for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years, and you always set big goals. You set really big goals every year. How do you maintain your mindset so you don't get discouraged, or you'll never quit, but you discourage or stop trying when maybe you fall short of some of your goals?
Yeah, so I always tell myself and I tell my clients that I work with, every year you should go into the year what I call your bag. And your bag is your big, audacious goal. And your bag should be so big that even if you failed, you still win. So let me give you an example just to make it number wise. Let's say I go into the year and I say, I want to earn 100K. I want to earn 100K. That's my big goal. Well, if I fail by 50%, that's only $50,000. I'm going to be in a world of hurt. But if I go in and say my big audacious goal is $1 million and I fail by 50%, I still got 500K and I'm going to have a pretty good year. And so for me, the mindset is just go big, right? They say go big or go home. And so I like to keep my goals big because even if life should happen, if obstacles or roadblocks gets in the way, my goal was so big that even if I only get it 70%, 60%, it was so big that I still win anyway.
Now, have you always been like this, or have you had to kind of acquire the knowledge and resilience to stick to it?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I just always had and not known it. Like I grew up in an environment where losing wasn't an option. Like losing, and not because I was like this super motivated person, but I grew up, hey, I'm about to go pump people's gas so I can get some money so I can eat. If I don't go pump gas and I don't do a good job, then I'm not gonna have no money and I'm not gonna eat. Well, I like to eat. So it's not an option. It's not an option for someone to tell me I can't pump their gas or, to get dejected after 2 or 3 people told me no. And so I remember when I was at that Arco gas station, I learned quickly, elements of salesmanship that I didn't, go to school for. I just know, what? If I smile a little bit more, I'm a little bit more approachable. If I use the language of connection, hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. How are you? Do you mind if I pump your gas, wash your windows for you? Right? If I talk like that, I had a better shot of closing the deal. So for me, having that goal, having that big goal of, man, you got to succeed, because if you don't succeed, you're going to lose. And so the same thing is now the quality of life I want. Man, if you don't win, man, you're not going to have the quality of life you want. So you got to win. So I guess it's always kind of been there. It's just been able to be refined now that I have language around it. Growing up, we didn't have goals and mindset and all that type of stuff. But now I just have language around it and frameworks that I use that help me out.
Okay. So from the Arco station to today, what have been maybe the most valuable lessons you've learned about life that have allowed you to become ultra successful personally and professionally?
Yeah. So I call that, I told you I always have these frameworks. So I call my 4 P's of success. My 4 P's of success. The first one is places. If you want to be highly successful, you got to change the places. You got to change the environments that you're going to. So once again, I grew up in Compton, California. I used to hang out with the bad boys at the park. We would get into trouble. And so I had to change the places that I was going. So instead of hanging out the park, instead of gang banging, I started going hanging out with the football team. I started playing football. I started playing sports. So now I'm changing the places. Once you change the places, you now begin to change the people that you interact with. And you know what they always say, birds of a feather flock together. You're going to be the sum total of the 5 people you hang out the most with. So they're going to shape you. They're going to shape your influence. And so once you start changing the places, you start changing the people. Now, once you start changing the people, that changes your conversation. And when your conversation changes, that changes your perspective. that changes your perspective. So give you an example. When I was at the park hanging out with the gangbangers, my perspective was, it's me against the world. I ain't got nothing to live for. I'm ready to die, to live and die in LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was my philosophy. That was my perspective, right? I started hanging out over here with the football team. Oh, we're a team. Oh, I'm going to college. Oh, I'm going to make something of myself, right? It changed my perspective about the world. And then the fourth P is practices, your daily practices. We call them habits, right? Your habits create your results. Your habits create your results. And so those four things, when I started changing the places I went, started changing the people I hung around, started changing my perspective about life, about success, about who I was as a man, how I fit in this world, how I fit in the cosmos. And then I started changing my practices. Instead of hanging out in bed all day long, I started getting up, started reading, started getting into personal development. And so that's been my pathway to my success over the years.
All right. We got our 4 P's: places, people, perspective, and practices.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned books. If you were to pick 2 or 3 books that you feel people should stop what they're doing right now and start to read them immediately, outside of The Quiet Storm, I'll say, outside of The Quiet Storm, which just came out on Tuesday.
Oh man, so you took it away from me.
What 3 books do you recommend, or do you feel people should read right away?
Yeah, so I'm going to, for me, outside of the Bible is a no-brainer. That's me personally, but we're not going to add this to this list. But if I was going to pick 3 books, one would be, it's a book by a gentleman by the name of Reginald F. Lewis, and the title of it is Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?
Yes.
The second book is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And the third one is going to be a toughie because I'm going personal development. Do I go finance? Do I go? I would say the third one currently right now that's in the mix would be Who Not How by Dan Sullivan.
Oh, yes. I have to. Okay.
Yeah, Who Not How by Dan Sullivan.
Yes. So did you mention that one right there? Here we go. Who Not How, right here.
Yeah, there you go.
Because a lot of what you were speaking of, 10x is easier than 2x. That's the other one by Dan Sullivan.
That's the other one. 10X is, and so I've had the pleasure of being a part of Dan's mastermind strategic coach for a couple of years, and just the philosophies and once again the perspective that he brings to the business community and entrepreneurship is uncanny. It's amazing.
Okay, Mandy. See, me and Mandy are in sync, even when she's not here. Because I was going to ask this question, she beat me to it, so I'm gonna give her credit. Speaking of habits and practices, which habits and practices should someone that wants to become a professional speaker start today?
Yeah. So habit number 1 is practice. It sounds so practical. But when you want to be the best of the best in whatever you do, you have to practice. And so give you an example. When you look at the framework of a talk, of a keynote, it's 3 parts, right? You have your beginning, you have your body, and then you have your ending. And so I have this thing that I teach to our speakers in our Speakers Academy. I call it the Kobe Bryant daily speaker routine, the Kobe Bryant daily speaker routine. And so if you know anything about Kobe was a ferocious practicer, right? And so as a keynoter, how does that translate to us? So Kobe would go to the gym, and it said that Kobe would shoot 1,000 shots until he made 1,000. He didn't just shoot 1,000, he had to make 1,000. That's a big difference. There's a difference between shooting 1,000 and making 1,000. So what does that look like for a speaker? Every morning, you should be working on a part of your speech. So like Kobe would work on the jab step. So to me, that's working on your opening. working on your opening, and giving yourself, I don't know if you played basketball or anything, but as a little kid, we would be in the garage, we'd be on the court, and you know how you would keep shooting, and if you miss, you would create scenarios. Oh, you fouled me. You know, if you didn't make that last shot, you would always create scenarios until you won, right? 3 seconds on the clock, 3, 2, oh, he got fouled. You got another shot, right? In my mind, I always practice different audiences. So this audience, 90% women. Okay, this audience, 90% teens. Okay, this audience is a mix of women and men. How should I open, right? My body's going to be pretty much the same, the framework, the stories that I tell, but what's my opening? Okay, I'm in Detroit today versus being in San Francisco. So I'm studying, I'm like, okay, what's a hallmark in San Francisco that I can connect with the audience? So practicing, what's the opening? And then connection, how am I going to connect with the audience? And so if you're just now speaking or you've been speaking for a while, I challenge you to really ask yourself, how much do I practice it? You know, I've spoken over 2,000 times, but I approach, like you appreciate this, what Biggie said, right? I approach it like it's my first time. I approach it like it's my first time. I never get satisfied and say, you know what, I've given this presentation 100 times. I'm just going to go off the cuff. No, I approach every audience with honor because it's a new audience. So that would be my first thing. It's just practice. And then the second practice, I would say, is get around other high caliber speakers that are where you want to be. When I was in the military, they taught us that you should always perform and act 2 ranks above. So if you are E4, you should be acting like you're an E6. If you're E6, you should be acting like you're E8. So as a speaker, if you're at the 5K level, you should be hanging around 10K and 15K speakers. If you're at the 10K, you should be hanging around 20 and 25K speakers, because you should be in the environment of your next level.
Okay. Follow-up question to that. When you're coaching young and up-and-coming speakers, what are the characteristics that let you know that, okay, they've got it, they're going to stick with it, they're going to be here for the long haul?
Yeah. If they listen, if I tell them to go do something, once again, the Kobe Bryant workout, if I tell them to go do something, because you can see it like a trainer, right? If you're going losing weight, I don't know if you've ever watched the 600-pound life, but when they go into the doctor, he can tell that they haven't done what he told them to do, because the regiment that he's told them to do, he knows the result it should produce. So if he tells them, hey, I need you to lose 50 pounds, 80 pounds, this is what you need to do. You need to drink 3 gallons of water. You need to only eat this many calories. He knows that if you do this, it's going to produce this result. So the same for me. I can talk with somebody and I can tell them, hey, if you do this, it's going to produce this. You know, it's like, I call it my Betty Crocker. Right. With Betty Crocker, and I've done this for real. I've gone all over the world and I go into stores everywhere, all around the world. I said, you know what? I want to see if they're going to change the recipe when I'm in India. I want to see if they're going to change the recipe when I'm in Ghana. So I would go into the local market, find the Betty Crocker cake mix, and I want to look at the recipe. Is it going to be different in Ghana? Wait a minute. Nope. It's the same. 2 eggs, a pat of butter, and a cup of milk. Whip it up. It's going to be a little lumpy. Preheat the oven. Grease the oven. But here's what it says, Amani. It says, put in the oven for 15 to 25 minutes. And here's the instruction. Why can't Betty Crocker tell you 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes? Because here's the kicker. She says, ovens vary. What does that mean to you and I? That means all of our lives are different. See, there's people that are listening to us right now. They're all getting the information at the same time. But some people are going to say, oh, Amani and Dr. Will don't know what they're talking about. That just works for them because they're bald-headed dudes. See, I got long dreads, so it's not going to work for me, right? Somebody else is going to say, you know what? Dr. Will said, practice my keynote, practice my opening, but then the dog started chasing the cat started chasing the mouse started chasing the cheese, and they got distracted. And so I know what I tell people, it will work. It just depends. As I always tell art students, it will work if you work it. And so ovens vary. Your life varies. It's going to work. You just got to be dedicated to the work.
Okay. I want to continue with the habits because I remember we were in the Black NSA Mastermind, and you said something I wrote on my whiteboard that's still there. I probably have it less, but I wrote down, it says 40 sales activities per week. But I believe you do more per week. Tell us about that mindset in terms of your habits, about how you consistently, because you're just talking about the Kobe Bryant workout routine, do all this sales work. How are you able to consistently maintain and continue to do high volume of sales activities per week?
Yeah, so Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about one of the principles is start with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. And so you have to go to the result, because the result is what's going to motivate us. The result is what's going to keep us focused. And so as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, the result that you ultimately want is a sale. That's to close the sale, to sell something for somebody to buy your service or your product. So that's the ultimate result. What happens is, in the process of that, you're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to hear a lot of no's. And so what I found out over the years is success is just a numbers game. That's all success is. It's just a numbers game. When we're talking about business and sales, it's a numbers game. So if I start with the end in mind, I'll just give you mine. Every year, my goal is to get hired 30 times at my keynote fee. That's my goal, to get hired 30 times at my keynote fee. That's the goal. That's the focus. So we want to get hired 30 times at my keynote fee. Now the game is, how many people do I need to contact to get my 30 yeses? Because that's all I care about. I don't even care about the no's. All I'm caring about is my yeses. Now, what does the yes represent? What does the goal represent? If I get 30 yeses, man, that pays my mortgage. That pays for every vacation I want to go on. That pays for my lifestyle. That's the win. That's the Super Bowl, right? December 31st. That's the Super Bowl for me. That's the win. So that's what keeps me motivated, because I know whether it's 150, whether it's 200, whether it's 2,000 people that I got to go through to get to my yes, my 30 yeses, my life is going to be grand. So that's what motivates me. It's not so much, it's like, once again, the trainer. He's going to tell you, she's going to tell you, stop looking in the mirror. Stop looking in the mirror. Don't come to the gym one day and then go back and look in the mirror and be like, oh, this stuff is not working. This stuff is not. No, it's just like when you plant a seed, there's stuff that's underground that's working that you don't see. Your job is to do what you're supposed to do. Water the plant, shield the plant, keep the birds from grabbing the seeds. That's my job. My job is to do reach out. That's my job. The yes is the other person's job. That's, if I send an email to you, it's your job to say yes. My job is to make it as easy as possible. So that's me sending it out. That's making sure my marketing, that's making sure that I'm adding value to what I'm offering you. And so for me, that's what keeps me motivated, is that end goal. Like, doing all of this is going to get, man, if I could figure out a way where people would just come knock on my door and just hand me a check once a month, I wouldn't do all that other stuff. But I haven't figured that out. And I've been to all the best masterminds and all the best training, and nobody has said, hey, man, if you do this, people would just come knock at your door and just hand you a check for $30,000 and you're chill. I haven't figured that part out. So that's the only other way I know, is to do reach out, man.
How do you help people that you coach, or maybe that you work with, that get discouraged, that they hear the no's and they just kind of like, they stop doing the work and they get discouraged and then they kind of give up? How do you help them get back on track?
Yeah, so with our clients and with our students in our academy, we try to do a very good job with setting proper expectations. A lot of people have the wrong expectations when they go into business, when they go into sales. And so on the front end, I always use this example. It's like when you go to the dentist, when you get ready to go to the dentist and they're getting ready to put that Novocaine in your mouth, they have a conversation with you and they say, you're going to feel a little pressure. And the reason why they tell you that, Amani, is because they don't want you to be shocked by it. They don't want you to jump in the seat, because if you jump in the seat and that Novocaine goes and hits the wrong nerve, then you're in a world of trouble. And so we try to have this conversation. I let people know, hey, before you get your first yes, you may have to endure 200 no's. But we're not worried about that because one yes can change everything. See, if your one yes, let's say you're a keynoter, your one yes is 15,000 and 199 people told you no this month, but one person told you yes. Do you care about the 199?
No.
No, not at all. You're excited about the one yes. And so we're going to keep going till we get that one yes. And then I also tell them, listen, no and feedback, that's the breakfast of champions, because without feedback, without research, without data, when I send out these 100 emails, I'm looking for data. Who's opening it? What's resonating? What subject line is working? What subject line is not working? What body of copy is working? It's just giving me feedback. And so when I send out the next 100, I'm even better. When I send out the next 100, by the time I get to 300, I know exactly what to say. I know the lingo. I know what words are going to move them on the other side for them to say yes.
Okay. What was the yes for you that changed everything?
Oh, man. So my first trip to Ghana. I'm on my first trip to Ghana, and I'm getting there, and I'm just blown away that they've even asked me to come and speak. And I get off the airplane, and the young man, he comes over to me, and we're talking, having small talk. And Amani, I'm asking him about every other speaker in the world. Hey, have you heard about, why'd y'all pick me? Have you heard about? And so he must have got frustrated at me because he turns to me, Amani, and he says, Dr. Will, these other people you mentioned, we don't know them. We know you, and we want you. And that was the moment where I realized that my voice in this world mattered. It may not matter to everybody, but it matters to those who hired me. Like my coaching clients, I tell them, I don't have to be the best coach in the world. I just need to be the best coach to them. And if I'm the best coach to them, then I win. And so when he told me that, he says, we want you, I knew that there was a place for me in this world, and it shifted my confidence. It shifted my perspective of the impact that I could have in not the world, but my world.
Who, growing up and now, so I ask this two ways, like who were your mentors when you were a young up and coming speaker, and who do you look up to now?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was very fortunate when, like I say, 15 years ago, when I went to that speaker conference. Not long after that, I was able to meet Les Brown in person, and he was doing we were both speaking at this event, and I had the opportunity to invest just me and him 2 hours at this event. And I remember asking him, I said, Mr. Brown, I'm a young speaker. If you could give me any advice on how to be successful in this industry. And he says, learn your story. And oh yeah. No. Learn your story. You should be your best subject. You should invest countless hours studying you. And so at that time, I had a very generic type of message back then. It was about my story. But then he taught me how to dig into my life and my story. And so all the places I've been to, all the experiences I've had, how do you put that together to create this experience for your audience? And so that was one of my earlier lessons. And then, to be totally honest with you, I learned from I learn from everybody. I'm inquisitive and I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to ask questions. You know, I've called you and asked you, hey man, I saw you using this gadget on where you get that from, man? A lot of people let their ego get in the way. I don't want Amani thinking I'm trying to copy him, cheat off him.
Right.
Bro, I don't care, bro. If you where you get that sweater from, man? Well, I want one. Right. And so I'm huge with that, man. I'm like, I'll go to somebody and I have a history. You know, when they talk about hitting the DM, I'm a DM dude. I have a history of hitting the DM. Hey, I saw you doing this. Hey, I saw you do this with your video. Hey, I saw you do that. You know, just this past week, I just wrote this on my Facebook. I had reached out to another speaker, and he literally changed his answer to my question. Literally changed my life, literally, because it challenged me to look at my keynote, to look at how I'm delivering my services. Am I being the best of the best, or am I just coasting? Right? You get to a certain level and we're like, you know, I can coast. And he challenged me to like, man, you could even be better. You know, so yeah, I learned. But Les Brown was that earlier influence, and Lisa Nichols, definitely. I went to a couple of her millionaire mastery programs, I think it's called, and I went to a lot of James Melanchek and a lot of his training, but I started just learning from everybody, man. Simon T. Bailey has been a great encourager to me. Willie Jolly. I could just go on and on, but just everybody, man. If you're doing it right, if you're doing it wrong, I'm going to learn.
Yes. I love that. Okay, now it's time for us to flip the script, and you could ask me 2 questions. Any question you want to ask me?
I got it.
You, let's go.
I got it. All right, Amani. So I know, man, you got this brand new book that just came out, and you're deep into music. I'm curious your perspective on next 5 to 10 years. If a young artist is listening to us right now, what do you think the industry 5-10 years from now is going to look like?
I think the industry is going to be even more fragmented. You'll see an increase in more independent musicians where they will pick specific services they want to use at a label. Most commonly, probably like distribution, maybe marketing. So labels will kind of shift to a more a la carte service offering. They're not going to ask you for all your master rights and all the rights you have. They're going to maybe ask for a percentage. They ask for some points. And I think that's where I see even more international artists getting big here in the United States. Afrobeats is probably the one genre, Afrobeats and Amapiano, that will continue to rise and get to be popular, particularly here in the States. And I think that you'll start to see some groups try to copy the success of what K-pop groups are doing and experiencing across the world, because they are somehow still able to have a successful group concept. So you're going to start to see people look to them for inspiration and for how do they get to do that. Let's copy what they're doing. That would be my quick answer to that question.
I love it. All right. My second question, I had 2. My second question, man, I got so many for you. We're just going to have a telephone conversation after this. But here, and I think we're around the same age. I grew up in Compton, and I actually got to see Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, and yet literally in Dr. Dre's grandmother's garage playing beats. And so in my lifetime, I've seen a genre of music be created. I know hip hop started in New York, but just I'm talking about on the West Coast. I saw a genre of music created and literally go across the world. To when I moved to Germany and went to the clubs in Germany, I was fascinated to see American music inside the German clubs. My question for you is, what place do you see music playing in the next 25 to 50 years in bringing the world closer together through music?
I think music will have an extremely important role in that. I think back in the 60s, we had artists, I believe like the Impressions, who had songs that unified people. I think that every 2 or 3 years, you're going to have a certain song that's going to come out that's going to unify people, because we're so divided now that it's ripe for the picking. And I think that it will also help people start to have conversations. It will help people kind of come together and understand different perspectives through music, because when you express yourself through music, the barriers are kind of already down. It's not like you're having one-on-one conversation. You're saying it through song and telling a story. So I believe that the next 25 years, you'll see certain artists that will become even more skillful in doing that. Maybe even some more genres being made. And so that's what I think we will see moving forward in the next 25 years.
Oh, that's exciting, man. That's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to ask this question. It's usually one of my last ones, but I think you're going to give me some answers that I'm going to need to follow up with. So when you were 18, is that when you headed off to the military when you were 18?
18.
Okay. So you went to, so I'm going to go and somehow I'm driving through Compton, maybe go to the soul food place. I forget my soul food place in Compton, but I run into you at the soul food spot there. I'm getting some yams, some collard greens, and some ribs. And I say, Dr. Will of 18 years old, here's Dr. Will of today. What message would you share with your younger self at 18? What advice?
Yeah. So I would tell my younger 18-year-old self that it's all going to make sense, and you're going to need every experience that you've experienced up until now, and it's going to be okay. Life is going to turn out okay.
All right. That's common. What are you doing today to survive the massive amount of change that is happening? Lots of our speaker colleagues are losing contracts left and right. What are you doing to survive kind of the current era and keep your mind and your body and soul healthy?
Yeah. Great question. First thing I'm doing is the same thing I tell my executives and my CEOs to do is listen. Just listen. And listening is a skill that requires you to quiet out all the noise. And so there's a lot of noise. And so I don't want you to listen to all the noise. I don't want you to listen to all the noise. What I want you to listen to is for the solution. And so even with my company, we've been listening for the solutions. We know what the problems are. We know what the said problems are, but what are the solutions? And then as it relates to my mental health and just keeping a positive outlook, it's not as bad as you always think it is, and it's not as good as you always think it is. And as people, we're so resilient. As human beings, we learn to survive and adapt and change. That's been our modus operandi for forever. And so in my limited time on this earth, I tell myself and I tell other people, if you're alive, if you're listening to us right now, you're watching this right now, you're undefeated in life. No matter what life has tried to throw your way, no matter what problems, obstacles, roadblocks have come your way, if you're still here, you're undefeated. And so if that didn't take you out, this won't take you out. Just stay positive, stay, my word, focus, right? I just wrote to myself the other day, another focus note in this season. What do I need to be absorbing? What do I need to be hearing? And I just wrote to myself, if it doesn't pertain to me, if it doesn't come knock on my door, then I can't let it grab my attention. I can't let it grab my attention. And so one of my focus scriptures for this year is Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 3. And he's talking about building the wall. And he says, I'm doing a great work. And so I remind myself that we're doing a great work. Our company, we're in the midst of scaling our company, taking it to the next level. So we're doing a great work. I don't have the time to come down and get distracted.
Love it. Love it. My final question for you, what is your definition of resilience?
Yeah, my definition of resilience is simply just keep going. That's it. Just keep going. And if you just keep going, you'll eventually get there. You may not get there as fast as you want to get there. You may not get there when you thought you were going to get there, but you will get there. You will get there. And so, what is it? Les Brown says, he says, if you get knocked down, if you can look up, you can get up. So that's resilience. Keep going.
I love it. So we have your ticker going on in terms of people can find you at Dr. Will Speaks on all social media platforms. I just want to say thank you for being on the show with us. Mandy, we missed you, but we loved having you in the chat. Thank you for all the advice you
Mandy.
gave. And it's just I'm so glad I met you through Black NSA and continue to kind of see you at conferences and everywhere. So we'll just keep going, just like you said. And so we appreciate that. So I want you to stay on screen with me. I'm gonna give you a round of applause. And we'll do that there. Yes. And Mandy says, can't wait to see you speak sometime and talk to you another time. So we're going to make that happen because she's local to us. And for those of you watching, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe on the platform that you're watching or listening on. Thank you very much for listening and watching. We're going to get Mandy healthy this week, and we're going to see you next week where we have Julie Broad with us. I'm going to talk about releasing books and things of that nature. Thanks again to Dr. Will. And with that, we will see everyone next week. And thank you all for watching. Let me get to the right screen now. Hold on.